are there any events coming up that you want to plug? Any on the horizon?
Yeah. Okay, so we got two really cool ones. We got one that's my favorite. It's a Second Amendment event. I love it. And then there's the Memorial Day hike, which is always fun. We go over the Ringling Bridge and back. But that's a picnic. We don't do any commercial vendors out there. It's for the fallen.
Hey, what's going on, Sarasota? My name is Brad Hannon.
Trey Martel.
Felipe Colon.
And we've got an amazing guest representing an even better organization today. We've got Billy from SRQ Vets joining us. We're excited to have him on. I know that from just us talking, we were looking forward to getting somebody on with a 501c3, kind of doing something great for the community and, more importantly, the veteran community, which we talked a little bit about being far underserved. So thanks for coming on today, man.
Cheers.
Appreciate having you.
Yep.
Good seeing you again.
Yeah.
So, to tee things up, just to get us started, I mean, SRQ Vets, let's talk about what SRQ Vets is, and then we'll get into how it was founded, all that stuff. But for those that maybe don't know, maybe aren't benefiting from the organization because they weren't a vet, what does SRQ Vets do?
So we're a local organization based on we want to fix our backyard first before it is that we reach out and start fixing other people's backyards. I think that the purpose of that mentality is something that everybody should recognize. I mean, if you don't fix yourself first, how are you going to help anybody else?
Yeah, right. If you want to change the world, start with yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm just a man in the mirror.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
Or charity begins at home. I mean, that's kind of
absolutely
common
one.
And it started because what we found, the idea of veterans historically and those who serve obviously has been around since the beginning of written history, right? But the realization and the impact of it, and sometimes I tell people this, like we're not that far removed from the Model T Ford. So just because we have a smartphone and it makes us feel like we're smart and that we're advanced and ready to meet aliens doesn't mean that's true. But the realization of the impact of what veterans go through, I think, is becoming more paramount to the public because maybe the accessibility of information, or maybe because we just had a war that started in 1991 and then transferred over to 2003, and it was so long that if you had a baby in 2003, that child was potentially serving in the same conflict that their father was, which is asinine to me. It makes no sense. And it brings me to a favorite quote, war and conflict is the purest evidence of man's failure as a thinking animal. Well, anyways, when you come home, you got to fight another battle, and you got to fight that transition. You got to take all these extreme experiences on the spectrum of life and figure out how to consolidate it and make sense of it and find your moral compass coming back into a community that knows nothing about it.
I got you.
That sometimes it's typical for human fears. When they don't understand something, they fear something, and they fear something, and they ostracize it, and then you find yourself lost in that dichotomy. So we started this because a lot of us, when we came home, we were lost, and as we were looking for resources, we couldn't find them. Obviously, most people turn to the VA and say, hey, they're going to help me in some fashion, but that falls short, and we can talk about that in depth later.
Absolutely, yeah.
But even local organizations or national organizations, sometimes you got to cut through red tape. Sometimes, your need does not fit their mission statement.
Or your need ends up on a stack of paper on somebody's desk that's not actually getting it done, huh?
And it falls through like a nonprofit bureaucracy. So what we did is we says, well, we know we have a ton of problems here in Sarasota, Manatee County, which has a huge veteran population in the state of Florida. So why don't we live in an affluent community. Why don't we take advantage of the resources here, keep it pure volunteer, make sure that the resources go back into the community and start taking care of these veterans ourselves. And that's how we started. And it started simple. It started with just meeting an old veteran who had a dilapidated home and going there and cleaning it up, to helping them find appliances. I give you an example of a Korean era war veteran who, Cold era war veteran who had a stove that had one burner, and it was those coil burners, and it was like the back burner that was a small one. Well, we knew another veteran who had just retired from the Air Force, an awesome command sergeant major, who had this brand new stove that they wanted to switch out, so they donated it to us, and we went and just dropped it off to that veteran.
Wow.
And so we started realizing that there is a really unique set of resources here, and that resources didn't have to be monetary. It was the veteran community itself. The problem is once you discharge and you're going through the theory or the experience of transition, all veterans, they disenfranchise. They isolate. It takes about 6 to 7 months, and then all of a sudden you're going, what is my purpose? And without somebody telling you to be up at 06 and get ready for PT and here's your plan of the day, you lose that as a 21 or 22-year-old. So what we started doing is finding a way to dig back into that particular talent or that particular skill that all of them have. And I'll talk about that again later, because I really believe one of America's greatest human resources is the American veteran. We decided to tap into that and try to strengthen that community here in the civilian world.
That's awesome. I mean, that's why we're excited to have you on. You summed it up pretty well.
I mean, that's a lot to unpack, and I have to say, I misspoke a little bit earlier. I used a common phrase, charity begins at home. We shouldn't be using the word charity when we discuss veterans, because it's not charity, it's obligation.
It's true.
It's service.
It's service. They did service for us. We have an obligation to work with them when they come back from that job.
And I like that, because I absolutely agree with that. So sometimes, and I'll tell you, one of our first Memorial Day hikes that we did, I remember my father was not a veteran. When we got back from the hike, I went to go check on him, and he's like, "Wow, that was incredible." And I'm like, "Good, I'm glad you had a good time." And he goes, "No, I didn't realize that I was going to have accessibility to your stories and to your jokes and to your culture and to your community." He goes, "I'm hearing veteran stories from the left, right, front, back, all over the place. And son, I got to be honest with you, I understand you a little bit more."
That's cool.
And I remember going like, "Oh, we want to solve this problem. We have to invite everybody to the table. Everyone has to have open communication."
So you mentioned a couple things. One of the main problems is they come back and a lot of people don't really understand what they went through, so they can't really relate to them the same way. And then they don't have that same sense of regimented community that they experienced for so long. So you guys come in as an organization and you start to do what you can to fill that void. What I love about it is that doesn't even mean spending money. That just means, like you said, connecting one veteran to another. So many nonprofits focus on what they can raise and how big their profile can be. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just connecting two people who can help each other, right?
Correct. I mean, I'll give you a per example. We have a ramp build that's coming up this Sunday where we're going to go to a disabled veteran's house and we're going to build a handicap accessible ramp. And we invite the veterans to come out and do that, or the donors, and we say, just come and hang out. And you know what happens? The veteran comes out of their home. Maybe they bring us tea or cookies or whatever. Maybe they start making fun of us because, I'm a jarhead, and they'll be like, "Gee, I didn't realize you were smart," or whatever it may be. But what happens is you realize that their faces, they just light up because they're back in the community. And we got our irreverent humor, we got our dirty jokes and our silly sea shanties and all that stuff that we sing and have a good time. And it brings a little bit of comfort to a world that was isolated and so far away that now is, boom, right there at the doorstep.
Some familiarity.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to switch back to money, actually, what are some things you do to raise money? Because, there's got to be money coming in to some degree to accomplish the goals that you guys have set.
Yeah, so we're a 501c3, and we started it kind of like a grassroots effort, which was a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease. So we had to put proof to the pudding in order to show people that this is where your donations are going. We do things like, I'll just tell you some recently. We went to a golf outing in Longboat Key, and they did this little putt-putt thing, and we putted for dollars, and the people there were generous enough to donate. I mean, they had a value of how many putts or whatnot. They had it all planned out, and we showed up to those. We do our own golf tournaments. We've done those from time to time. We've marketed and solicited Gulf Coast community foundations and things of that nature. We talk to just big donors and tell them what's happening. We have a donation button on our Facebook and our website and our Instagram page for people who can donate, and it kicks them a receipt. We have a Memorial Day hike that we take donations to fund that hike, and then any surplus left thereover, we use for our nonprofit. We work with a really cool matching company called Flanzer Foundation, that's specifically for the mental health program. So all those proceeds are 100% donated, 100% go back out. And they'll match donations up to a certain amount. So some of our donors will say, "Hey, please donate to Flanzer." They'll process it, match your donation, and they send us that particular donation check.
Very cool. Are there any events coming up that you want to plug? Any on the horizon?
Yeah. Okay, so we got two really cool ones. We got one that's my favorite. It's a Second Amendment event. I love it. And then there's the Memorial Day hike, which is always fun. We go over the Ringling Bridge and back. But that's a picnic. We don't do any commercial vendors out there. It's for the fallen. It's for the families, and it's just a picnic. But But we have in May 31 guns in 31 days. So we have each day we'll take the pick 3, the afternoon pick 3 lottery number. So 000 to 999. We have 1,000 tickets. It's a suggested $50 donation. There's rules for that as well that you can read. Your ticket lasts the entire month. So if you got 000, the last 2 years we've had somebody hit twice in the month, and your number comes up on that day, well, then whatever gun is associated with that day, you get. And you go over to Whiskey Tango Firearms, and they run the background checks, and we make sure that Uncle Sam gets his, and that everybody gets checked out so that, you know, the very sensitive people of America don't get upset about it. And if they do get upset about it, it's a Second Amendment right, so they can kick rocks. But it's an amazing fundraising event that we really enjoy promoting.
That's awesome. I'll donate $50 for a chance to win a firearm. That sounds
yeah,
like
it's a
deal.
good spread, man. I mean, we got flyers on our website, so you can check it out, and there's some good weapons in there.
And you were telling me, I mean, you didn't just found SRQ Vets. You guys are coming up on your 10-year anniversary, so this has been, you know, at play for a while. You guys have obviously had some profound impact in just the local community. But I want to get more into not just necessarily your background, but the background of SRQ Vets, because it was founded by veterans. You're taking care of veterans. But, you know, I was just having a conversation with a young man earlier today, and I think he's like 17 years old, and he had a lot of, I want to do that. You know, I want to do that, and I want to do that. And I'm like, dude, you know what you do then, right? And he's like, what? I'm like, you just do it. You know, and he's like, oh, yeah, like Nike. And I'm like, no, but for real, you just do those things. And so you didn't, you know, have to come up with your logo and come up with your business plan and do all of these things. You started by just, you know, helping that guy with the stove or, you know, mowing the grass. So let's talk about those early days of SRQ Vets. Oof. Reminisce on the, you know, the times in which you were just serving a need that you saw without really, you know, all the irons or everything ironed out, you know, everything perfect, which is really, you know, a huge credit to you and the other guys you founded it with, because I mean, a lot of people they take forever. They're getting ready to get ready constantly. Yeah,
so going backwards, just doing it and getting ready to get ready, that annoys the heck out of me.
Yeah, I can tell.
If you got an idea, just do it. If there's an obstacle in your way, go over, under, around, or through it.
Right.
But just get the job done and move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
Like, don't procrastinate and just let it fester. And then prioritize. You know, you don't say no to priority A's because you're scared to do it, and you got a bunch of priority C's that'll just occupy your time.
Right.
That's just garbage.
Right.
Spoken like a true military man, huh? You guys get it done.
Just get it done. That's it.
Yeah.
So, like, this started, and I'm going to be a little personal about it. This started for 2 reasons. One, I tell everyone that it's become a personal therapy for myself and for other veterans. It's what keeps us out of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
The other portion we just got tired of watching people just like fall to the wayside, and there was no care there. And I think that there was a lack of care because there was probably a monumental misunderstanding.
Right.
So we started it, and I remember it was a group of local veterans, and we chose SRQ Vets because it's the airport code.
Yeah.
And we liked the whole idea of Fight Club. So we were like, okay, well, we're going to choose this, and this is going to be based on each airport code. As it grows, it'll grow based on chapters of airport codes, which those veterans in those communities can take care of themselves. And then it was like, okay, well, what do we do? And we're like, well, if we're going to do this from a grassroots level, we got to put some elbow grease out there. And
literal grassroots.
Correct. And it started. I mean, if you go back to the early pictures on our social medias, you'll see us at these houses. You'll see us at these DAVs. You'll see us at these VFWs where we're coming in and we're trying to add a new energy to it and clean up things and show people that we're not here for lip service. We're coming in to do this. And then they say thank you. And they're like, well, who are those guys? And I'm like, well, these guys called SRQ Vets. I've never heard of them before. You mean like veterinarians? Like, no, like veterans. And it was a lot of, you get a call and you got to get it done quick. It was a lot of, hey, honey, I know we just had a new baby, but I really got to get this project done. I'm sorry. I love you, and I'll change diapers tonight. So
I mean, you guys were mowing grass, though, literally. Like grassroots, you guys were mowing veterans' grass, like taking care of the house. And just
cleaning things up. Correct. And you had to do it, but you had to do it for several purposes. One, you had to do it so that they could trust that there was going to be a response. Mm-hmm. And you had to do it at that level to show people the value of the services, because the reality was nobody else was doing it and impacting anything at that level.
Right.
And after that, it took probably about like another year or two before we found the next void. And the next void was getting people jobs or helping with people's housing. Back then, it was a little bit less expensive to live here, and people would get housing, but they would have nothing to fill it. So we would get donated furniture, and we would take that out there, and we would fill it. And then it became utilities. And then, we created rules on how much we could give to one veteran, because we couldn't let one veteran suck the system dry and, teach him to fish instead of give him a fish type thing. And then it moved to, oh my God, there's a mental health issue here. And it's not just for veterans, it's for spouses and children and caretakers as well. So we have to fill that void. Then it went to, okay, we can do more because we have more resources. So we started donating cars. And then we linked in with Freedom Auto, who's off of Cattleman. He's an Army veteran himself. And we take our vehicles over there to get it checked. And we compensate him, and he cuts us a deal because he knows that it's going to a veteran that's pursuing the mission. And then we get the cars donated to the veterans, and we pay for the transfer of all the paperwork. And then it developed into, now we have resources to build these handicap ramps, and what we did is we knew that the progression was, you're going to satisfy one object, and then you're going to find a new void, and then you're going to have to balance out your resources and put the business cap on and make a decision and keep going up.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. It's like, that's basically your last decade in a nutshell, huh?
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot of work.
So I understand, just from your story too, really cool, just talking before the show, you came out, you went through the same issues that you're now helping to serve. You said it's kind of your therapy. So, walk us through, you literally got out of the service. You tell me you're in the restaurant industry, and then the next thing you know, you're an attorney. So let's get into the background of how the heck that happened, because you don't just go from working in a restaurant out of the military to then now I'm an attorney, all of a sudden, right? So what was that all about? How does that happen?
Yeah. So, I went in the buddy program with a mutual friend, and we joined the Marines together, and we both took two totally separate routes. I did a stint in security forces guarding nuclear assets in Maryland, which was great. It was a high-speed, low-drag job. Anyone who's a Marine is going to look at me and be like, you're just glorified Firewatch. And the reality is, yeah, we were, but it still was cool. The problem is when we separated from infantry school, a lot of the guys went into these units after, March 2003 was the invasion. And so when they came back, you got these guys being replacements, and then they're doing their follow-up deployments the following year. And you're stuck in the security forces position dealing with that, and you hear things that happen to your friends. Like my rack mate in boot camp, I believe he was shot around 7 times in Fallujah, and the other one was from SOI, was blown in half. And so those stories come back, and you start hearing this, and it has an impact on you. And I remember dealing with a lot of things that at a young age I didn't anticipate seeing.
Yeah.
Some of that was active duty and service suicides. Some of that was hazing, like really bad hazing. Some of that was even testifying in a court-martial for hazing of what I witnessed. And then hearing the stories of my friends overseas who were getting hurt. And I remember telling my first sergeant, I got to get over there. And I remember he looked at me and the other Marine I was with and was like, you guys are idiots. You got a cush job here. Just chill. And we're like, no, I got something I got to do. I need to do it.
Right.
And so they sent me to 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines Weapons Company, which is in 29 Palms, California. I got there, and they assigned me to an 81 millimeter mortar platoon. I was a mortarman in the Marines. And we deployed to Iraq. I got there, I think, in September of 06. I think I was just getting ready to turn 22 at the time. So I got there, and we had a real long deployment. In December, I had a bad mishap. We were getting a lot of munitions that were coming down to Euphrates, and we were north of the Euphrates. And so, we had a state platoon, a sniper platoon with us that set up OPs, and then we would, watch everything and figure out, what these guys were transporting, et cetera. We were going to do this op that was going to go from little barrier islands to barrier islands. They were going to use helicopters. And the day before, we were doing our touch and goes and, doing our practice on how to go off the helicopter, load, unload, things like that. And ours went down. And it was a hard landing. It came in. There was a lot of dust kick up from the first helicopter, and ours came in and hit real hard, flipped, and it just kind of split.
Jeez.
And everyone was unstrapped because we were all getting ready to offload. And I think the number I saw, and don't quote me on it, was there was 20-plus Marines that were in there, and I think there was only about a handful, maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 of us that went back to the unit, and I happened to be one of them.
Wow.
And my thumb got tore up real bad. I got knocked out. I was completely unconscious. My ear was bleeding out. I went to Al-Assad, got patched up, went back to my unit, and healed up, and then we went on with our mission. And then the fun part came where Marines typically do 7 months deployment, but this is right when the troop surge hit. So we had all made like plans to go to Palm Springs, stay at a nice hotel, get one of those floating fruit salads, and just sit in the pool and get burned all day. And then we get to notice that, hey guys, you got to cancel all that. We're staying for a couple more months. And so that was like really depressing. Then a good friend of mine got killed on a patrol. And then the IEDs, I mean, I think I can probably count about half a dozen that I was part of. That
in your vicinity, like
that hit my squad or that I responded to, it being the first react person. I remember we shooting guys who were putting in IEDs on the road, sometimes finding them, sometimes not finding them. It was really heavy, and it was a lot of desert fighting. So it's a difference, you know. There's an incredible battle that happened in Fallujah in November of 2004 that was urban, and it was insane. I mean, the history is the largest urban battle before that was Way City, Vietnam, and you know that's a heavy fight. Ours was nothing but desert, and it was very different. It was very it was wild and open, and there was like no rules. You know?
Right.
So, anyways, I get done. The problem is when I discharge, I get back right after I'm pulling a friend of mine out of a hole, and 2 weeks later. Because of the shortness of my contract, as soon as we get back from Iraq, I'm basically checking out and going home. And like 2 to 3 weeks later, I'm back in Sarasota.
Like you out of the
Marine Corps
service altogether.
So I'm living in Lake Sarasota at the time. I'm going there. I'm sitting down. Friends are showing up, and I'm like, "You guys need to go, man. I cannot figure out what's going on." Then I moved up to Pensacola and started college and started working in the restaurant industry because my brother and I had always spoken about maybe running a restaurant or doing something like that. And it was good. Helped run a kitchen. They made me an expo. I did a little kitchen coordinating, worked the line, things of that nature. But I started noticing that the injuries that happened, like my left knee, I would get these like Baker cysts in the back of my left knee. And all I'm doing is like standing and moving. And I'm like 23 years old. I'm like, why do I have a Baker cyst and a crunchy knee and now my back hurts? So I realized I'm not going to be able to do this for very much longer, then went to study history. And throughout studying history, I had a focus on antiquity and military history because I like it. And in that process, learned, whoa, there's a crazy void out there with these veterans and these VA claims and helping them and et cetera. And so I had a professor who was really, really cool. I was studying this class called Women in Law, and she says, you need to go to law school. And I'm like, I don't want to go to law school. I cannot stand attorneys. They make big problems out of nothing, and they milk their clients. I can't stand it. So she's like, just think about it. So I thought about it. I had another cool professor who's a retired judge now in Manatee County, and he said the same thing. And he goes, don't do it for that. Do it because we see that you want to help people, and you're going to have the best access to help people if you have a law degree. So I was like, perfect, I'll do it. So it was awesome. A rush. It was a rush for me. I signed up for a law school in Jacksonville, and my focus was research, writing, and drafting, and studying VA claims. Got done with that. Came back.
How long was that, by the way? Because you're talking through like we just went to law school and then I did that, and it's so easy. But I mean, that's a pretty. You talk about the difficult transition. I mean, that's a very big difference from being in the desert fighting to then being in a classroom learning law, right?
Yeah.
So props to you for being able to do that.
True. And the other part that bothered me at the time was I always felt like I was 4 years behind everyone. So, you would do your regular semesters, and then I would do summer school, and I just grinded it out. I mean, I'm like, I got to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get out in the workforce and start doing something, and this is a barrier that's in my way. So, did that, passed the bar exam, took my first position as a prosecutor in Manatee County because I wanted to be a litigator. I wanted someone who was going to argue on behalf of people, and what better way to do that than get trial experience. So I did a ton of trials over there. And it was a phenomenal experience because, one person that I look up to the most, who's now helping operate the Veterans Treatment Court, who was my boss at the time, basically the second in command of the Manatee office, was like, Bill, I want you to help us be the state attorney liaison to help build Veteran Treatment Court. We see what you do. We see this SRQ Vets thing. Like, someone with your experience in the military, please, will you do this? And I was like, sure. So we got with Justice for Vets, and we started the first veteran treatment court. Still operates today.
Wow.
The idea is to keep veterans out of the criminal justice system, so you want the recidivism rate to be very low.
So that would be considered a diversion program?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it was linked into drug court because naturally veterans,
there's some substance abuse there.
they self-medicate.
Yeah.
So, so we started that. And then I did a stint in DeSoto, then went back to Manatee, then came over to Sarasota, and then helped the program in Sarasota had already started when I was in DeSoto and Manatee, so I just helped supplement and would just kind of be a liaison there as well. But there was a problem. I would see these veterans come in and out, and I would look at them and I'd be like, oh my God, if I can just talk to them. But I can't, I'm a prosecutor.
Right.
I got to talk to the defense attorney.
You were on the other side of the table.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and it's a very ethical standard that we have to uphold.
Yeah.
So that's when the decision came, hey, I'm sorry, but I have to go.
Right.
And it was great. I mean, I loved working there. The state attorney was amazing. He saw it. He understood it. And off I went. And I tried to dabble in the
No, you're fine.
I tried to dabble in the civil world of law, and it just didn't fit.
Right.
It just didn't fit my personality. And I
But
started.
you got good experience there. And
Got
you
great
learned some
experience.
things.
And then I looked and I went, oh my God, you could become an accredited attorney and I can do this for veterans. And I'm going, boom, there it is. And so I just dove headfirst into that and saw a major void. And it's a woefully underrepresented population. I mean, they make up less than 7% of the population now, and they're in the millions. And the advocates that I've seen, that I know of, it's just so small.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably small. And most of the people that we get in our office, they're going, I didn't even know you could be an attorney for this. And I'm like, I know.
Hey, listen, I know you guys are having fun because I'm engaged. This is an awesome talk with Billy from SRQ Vets. If you want to get to know him a little bit more, hang out for the rapid fire questions powered by Cryo XL.
This is Billy Sterbinsky with SRQ Vets, and this is Rapid Fire. The Pacific. I wish I could fly. Jimmy Buffett.
Some people claim that there's a war.
Any car. Mad Dog Mattis.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Hell no. Spaghetti, lasagna, and rice and beans. NFL. J-Mo Ginger. We just want everyone to understand.
So you used a term that I hadn't heard before called accredited attorney. Can you break that down for our viewers, what that is, why it's important?
It's very important. So
Stay out of the rabbit hole.
So just
High level.
to take a step back, so these regulations, Title 38 of the U.S. Code, which then transfers down to Title 38 of the Code of Federal Regulations, I believe are some of the most incredible rules and laws that any human institution has ever created.
Wow.
And I challenge anyone to find something that takes care of veterans and those who serve this country better than what was created back in the 1860s by the Abe Lincoln administration. And I quote him, for those who borne the battle and their widow and their orphan. It's beautiful. So what happened was way back then, the 1860s, lawyers could help, but they were limited to a $10 fee. So obviously the lawyers have to make a business decision there. And it doesn't become fruitful for them to help veterans. Well, as the laws progressed and as time progressed and as the evolution of this institution progressed, other advocates that came before me started seeing that there was, how are these people able to get representation over a system that's supposed to be non-adversarial, but is clearly becoming adversarial?
Right.
You'll even have, if you Google the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, I believe that they actually admit that it's an adversarial institution and it should not be. All the rules are created to benefit the veteran, but they're woefully misapplied, and facts are missed continuously. So what the legislature did, I think it was around the 1980s or something like that, don't quote me on the date, but they created this theory called the Equal Access to Justice Act, which is basically, in a nutshell, like if you're going after a benefit you're entitled to and you're unable to maintain representation because of whatever barrier there is, well, it shouldn't be that way. You know, Americans, especially America's veterans, should be able to go out and hire an attorney and not be strapped by this $10 fee that came from like the 1800s.
Right.
So they started expanding it, and they started expanding. You can get help at the Board of Veterans Appeals level, and then it just kind of started dwindling down to now they have the Appeals Modernization Act that came out, which goes back to your question, which is, what is an accredited attorney? Well, under the Title 38 of the Code of Federal Regulations, 14.636, it says that you can be an accredited agent if you jump through these sets of hoops and you follow these sets of standards and you perform in this set of way. And you can be compensated for that, for the representation that you give. Most people say, well, wait, so you're helping veterans and you're getting paid? And the answer is like, well, yes. I mean, we live in a capitalist system. Like, why is that a surprise? And they say, well, what do you get paid? And I go, well, per statute, a reasonable fee is 20%. So as an attorney, you're already starting yourself out at the lowest rate nationally.
Right.
Most people are charging 33 1/3%, or if they file a complaint, 40%. You're going, whoa.
Right.
You know, and then they have contingency rules for this stuff. So the answer is yes. And the reality is once we get them a benefit, if the claim was denied and you can reverse that, they're going to get a retroactive payment. And that retroactive payment, if that's the result of an attorney or an agent's work, then they're entitled to a 20% fee that the VA will pay that individually. The veteran gets the remainder, and we don't touch their monthly amount, which they take for the rest of their life, which if you do the math and you look at the benefit that you got the veteran for the rest of their life, your fee looks like less than 1%.
Right.
Which is fine.
Because you're not taking the 20% out of the perpetuity payments.
Correct.
You're getting the 20% off of the retroactive
and it's
amount.
Fair. You know, I think it's a fair deal. And so
well, veterans probably do too, which is why they would come to you to be to have you represent them.
I mean, if you're getting a payout you wouldn't otherwise get, why do I care what you're paid?
Well, that's a lot of the conversation. Correct. And not only that, but they're going, Bill, I literally have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
So
I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah.
Do you handle widows as well?
We do. So there's you got your life benefits, your compensation for the injuries, you got your pension for non-service connected injuries, but you satisfy some criteria. When the veteran passes, if it's considered a service connected death, then you can get to the survivor's benefits portion, and that can be for dependents like children. I mean, one of the greatest stories, I think it was 2-3 years ago, the last Civil War pensioner died, and that was a daughter of a Confederate soldier.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
That is really crazy.
Google that. It's an incredible story, and that's the beauty of the statute. Why did Abe Lincoln do this? Because he says we're all American. I don't care. We got to stop this. We got to stop this. We got to come back together. And I think that's the most beautiful intent of that statute. It says, you know what? Not only were you a Confederate soldier, we don't care, and we'll take care of your kid.
So I think it's important to differentiate because, you know, I know from talking offline to you that this isn't all done through SRQ Vets. This is done through your practice outside of SRQ Vets. So, you know, where do we draw the line between what you do with SRQ Vets and what you do on the side, you know, not on the side full time, you know, with your practice?
Veteran Affairs
running
Law.
Yeah, Veteran Affairs Law. Is that running through SRQ Vets or is that totally separate or what?
No, I think that the importance of SRQ Vets is it has to remain its own thing.
Yeah.
It has to be its own identity, and I think that keeps the purity of it. This Veterans Affairs Law, it was a passion of mine, and it involves a lot of history. I mean, I tell people all the time I'm living in a real life history book. And I'm helping people that I learned I wanted to help through SRQ Vets. So this is a passion of mine that I decided to explore.
That's incredible.
But the two have to remain separate. You know, they have to be their own individual identities.
So have you ever drawn like a comparison? Like, I'm sure you've thought of this, but it just struck me when you're talking about it because you found that passion through SRQ Vets, right? Which is cool because SRQ Vets helps vets find their passion back into the workplace and transition. So like you started an organization, and through starting the organization found something that you pursued that the organization basically is doing the job that it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you're almost like their first client.
yeah.
Maybe.
That way.
First success story.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
Yeah.
and I want to, and speaking of success stories, I do want to hear about some of these success stories, right? Some of the transitions that you guys have helped veterans make, and some of those, impactful things that you guys have done. So just, off the top of your head, I'm going to throw you, that question, what are some of the biggest success stories that SRQ Vets has seen? I know that's tough because there's probably a ton of them, but I want to hear some cool stories.
Yeah, so let me think of some cool ones. Okay, one that comes to mind was Korean War vet, worked on Area 51, developed a neurological issue, which from time to time I would tease the veteran and be like, "You sure you didn't bang your head? You sure you didn't just fall into the wrong hangar?" And they were like, told you to look at a red shiny light, and all of a sudden your memory was gone. Lost their leg, and was an older veteran, and was quite isolated because of old age. So we went out to do a ramp, but the story doesn't start there. The story starts with them hearing about us and wanting to donate a truck that they got upon retirement for the company that they work for. So they donate this truck, and we get this truck, and we take it and we get it fixed up. And I go over to donate it to another veteran who I fill it up with gas, and then the veteran starts driving away and realizes, oh my God, the truck is leaking gas because the gas tank is bad. So I'm like, Christ. So we stop driving it, just pull over the side of the road, take the keys out of the ignition, stand far away.
Right.
I'll come see it. So we go out there, we strap the truck, we tow it back, it gets fixed again, veteran's good to go. So now the veteran has a truck, they're transitioning out of the military, they came to Sarasota.
Another full tank of gas.
Another full tank of gas, and they're good to go. So we then find out from that veteran that they need additional help at home, like they needed a walker. So we go to the VFW, and they have some extra like rolly walkers you can lock in and has a seat because dude's missing a leg.
Right.
And as we get there, we realize, oh, they're so old and they have these tall stairs. So we call the team and we say, hey, let's build a ramp. So the reality is the success behind it is it started out because an old veteran saw what we did and wanted to help a younger veteran transitioning back who needed a truck, and that happened. Then it came back to, oh, hey, by the way, we're looking for a roller. Do you guys have anything or know anything like that? Sure, we got one. And then you show up and you look and you assess and you go, oh, well, you actually need some more help too. Your wife can't take care of you anymore. I mean, gentleman was very tall, she was very short, and they both were in their golden years. It's just not going to work for them anymore. So we do this. We go over to the veteran's house, we build this ramp. It was the most darling thing ever. Ladies coming out with like tea and coffee and cookies and little sandwiches with the crust cut off. He's over in the back as an Air Force veteran, just hollering at us, yelling at us. We're dropping jokes, calling each other names. And you're looking, and what do? They write you a card, and they say, thank you for doing this. We haven't felt that good and been that alive in a long time.
That's very cool.
So that's one story.
Of many, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, there's many.
What about transition into the workforce? I mean, have you guys helped place anybody that's kind of thrived and taken off, or, do you hear feedback from, do you place them in certain industries, or, do you kind of just cater that towards their needs?
Good question. So it's more of a guidance thing, and I can tell you personally, before I was an attorney, I found that there was this program called vocational rehabilitation, and the idea is, in a nutshell, is if a veteran has a service-connected disability that is being aggravated by the occupation that they're doing, then theoretically the statute provides a remedy where they can go back to the VA and say, hey, I don't want to be off the tee to the government. I want to get an occupation that does not aggravate my service-connected disability so I can be a productive member of society, so they can go get training or education again. So I found this statute just by researching and looking at it, and then I would meet a veteran that wanted that transition into the workforce, but had a problem with some of
much
the
like
service.
your restaurant experience with your back or your
Correct.
the spur.
Very, very similar.
Right.
So what I would do is I would say, hey, you're going to have to grin and bear it with some odd jobs in the meantime, but look at this program. This is how it works. Make sure you prepare yourself for two things. One, the knowledge of how the statute works, how the cases interpret the statute. And two, this is where it gets fussy. the morons that operate this system and that blindly deny these claims without any consideration because maybe they're overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, or they got some unbelievably moronic quality control team above them telling them to do this because there's nobody holding the VA accountable. So obviously that's a
we could sense that.
We can sense you holding back a little bit.
So what you have to do is you have to prepare them for the animal that they're going to face against.
Yeah.
You have to let them know the expectations are going to be frustration. And if you get frustrated, that means they're winning. Just look at it, reassess, read the laws, educate yourself, and fire back.
And is that something that you are actually doing though? Like, or you're just guiding them, facilitating that?
With that time, I was just doing that. And that was through like finding people through SRQ Vets and going, hey, have you heard of this? You know, and they're like, no, I haven't. What is it? And then like, hey, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. Let's Google it. Let's ask questions, you know, play devil's advocate. Now that's in my day job, Veterans Affairs Law. Yes, that's my job. I tell the veterans, let me deal with this monkey of bureaucracy. Let me make sure that they remember my name instead of yours.
Gotcha.
So that's it. But the other stories that I like are the ones where you get veterans to show up and volunteer. And I have a face that's right in front of my eyes right now. Love the guy to death. And if he hears this, he's going to know exactly what I'm saying. We need a binder. We need a binder. And Benny will know it too. We need a binder. You have these remarkable souls that will show up for one or two events, and they're going, wow, I really want to be part of this. And then you know what they do? They come over to you week after week or meeting after meeting, and they go, I saw you guys built a ramp last month. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we did. He goes, why didn't I get an email about that? I'm like, oh, man, I'm just going to start pushing.
We only need 500 people to build a ramp. Okay?
Yeah. So that's what I started noticing. And I started noticing, because the board has fluctuated. I think I'm the only original founder, but the board has fluctuated. And the board fluctuates because people reach out and they're going, I want to help. And you're like, okay, well, we're going to get there. And they're like, no, I'm going to help. And they look at you as kind of like an obstacle. They're like, no, Bill, you're in my way. I'm helping. I don't care.
Right.
And it's just an incredible amount of positive energy, and just watching it grow that way. Or when you sit there and you're in a meeting and you got board members or volunteers that are looking over and they're going, Bill, do me a favor, be quiet. We got this. And I'm like, oh, my bad. That's, I think, a powerful success, is watching the people come out of the community and want to give.
Give back. That's awesome. I don't know that we've ever been so quiet on a podcast before, boys. I mean, it's cool. It really is something that, you know, we don't get to hear about every day or every week when we do this podcast. So it's really awesome. I know Trey had some more pointed questions.
Yeah, so switching over to your day job, Veterans Affairs Law, can you give us an example of how the VA benefits can fight you on stuff that your clients deserve? What do they push back on too hard that you think that they should be willing to give without your involvement?
So if I had to guess, and if I had to put my thumb on something that I really can't define fully, I would say that there's become a culture of incompetence that is prevalent. I think it's due to the human resources required to operate the second largest department in the federal government. So I respect the fact that it's created by humans, and humans are infinitely fallible. I respect the fact that entry-level individuals do not know the complexity of the laws and the facts, as someone who's been a practitioner for a while. I respect that, but it's still frustrating to deal with. So I have two stories that I thought of. We had a gentleman, a Vietnam veteran, who they have these diagnostic codes. So when you have a disability that's considered service-connected, based on the severity of the disability, a percentage is assigned, which a monetary amount is assigned to that percentage for them monthly. Well, the ring finger is a funny one. So if you have these two digits that are missing, the VA and the diagnostic codes and the powers to be say that that's worth 10%. If you have all three digits and the knuckle missing, they say that's worth 20%. So I get this Vietnam veteran in who has all of it missing. And I'm going, I mean, it's an amputation. Can't hide from that. look, it's in the service treatment records. It says that the resection was for bone, flesh, and nerves all the way down. Wow. This seems open and
cake,
shut.
right? Yeah.
Piece of cake, piece of crumb cake. So, so what happens is I look at the decision letters, and they've given the veteran 10%, and I'm going, okay, we got to reframe this thing. First of all, I'm going to have to submit a diagram of the musculoskeletal system of the hand, the left hand specifically, so that we can figure out what these medical terms apply to the service treatment records. So I submit this claim. They continue to deny it. The veteran's looking at me going, how can they deny this? Like, there's nothing there. And I'm like, I know. So I do what's called a higher level review, which is a quick way to get someone in the VA, decision review officer, which a lot of these people are guardian angels. They're just really good people that are trying to correct the history of the wrongs and the mistakes. So it happened to be someone that I had worked with before, and the decision review officer is a darling. And they know me, and they know that sometimes I get a little vociferous. And I do the spiel. I line up the exhibits. We go through it. Decision review officer is like, okay, Bill, I see what you're saying. And I go, okay, so can we just fix this and be done with it? And the grant would go back to 1972 when the veteran discharged.
Oh,
so so this mistake happened in 1972, and the veteran's been living with this until they met me in the 1920s.
40 years?
Yeah, it's insane. So 40, 50 years. So
He said 1920s. What, my
carry
math?
the two. So the decision review officer kindly goes, okay, Bill, I got to ask one question, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but I'm sorry to that guy, but I got to ask it. How do we know that the rest of the finger wasn't removed after discharge? And I go, well, we just went over the service treatment records, and we agree that this medical term matches this knuckle down to here, right? And they're like, yes. I'm like, because there was no goddamn finger to remove.
It shows that it was removed.
Okay, I'll fix this. Thank you. Have a great day. So that was one that always sticks in my mind.
Was it done and over with then?
They did. It was
Open and
done.
shut?
Veterans
Okay.
looking at me going, thanks.
What kind of money was recovered on that for that gentleman?
It was a good amount for them. Yeah. It
That's awesome.
It was a handsome amount. So, and they were very happy.
I mean, that's incredible.
The other one that was really odd is, so the problem with VA issues is in 2015, 2016, the VA promised or committed like $6.2 billion or something to medical providers, because most of the medical providers, first you would go to the VA hospitals, but it was getting too bogged down. So they says, you know what? We're going to do what government likes to do. We're not going to take responsibility. We're going to hire third-party contractors and pay them. And we're going to hope and pray that without any oversight, that they're going to do the job right and understand what they're doing. Yeah, total fail. So, and I say that because the Office of Inspector General reports is how you're going to find these answers. September of 22, when you file a claim and it goes to processing, the Office of Inspector General found that 68% of the time it's not processed correctly. And my favorite line of telling people, I'm going, wait a second. So if I file an application for what I believe that I should be service connected for, off the rip, I have a 32% chance it's going to be handled correctly. I don't know a bookie on the planet who's going to take those odds. So that's always something that I think is insane.
That is crazy.
So going back to the CMP examinations, to the next story is I get this CMP examination for loss of use of a sexual organ for a male veteran. And I'm looking at the denial. It's an unfavorable medical opinion. I'm going, where do they get these terms from? And I'm going, oh, look, they cited to medical literature to support the rationale. Ha! Well, what should you do as an attorney? Let's read the medical literature. Every single piece of medical literature was based on loss of use of a sexual organ for someone of the female gender.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm doing the decision review I'm talking to the decision review officer, and in a formal conference, they're going, well, Bill, so go ahead, tell me what's the error of fact or law. And I'm like, let's just start with facts. Like, what's that? I'm like, this person is not a girl. This person is a boy.
Just start with science.
Yeah. Like, so why is that important? Let's go over the rationale. And we went through each medical article that was for a female, and the decision review officer's going, wow, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't apologize to me. Call the veteran and apologize to them. And like, all right, we'll get this fixed. It ended up getting fixed down the road after bureaucracy. But that's And I'm telling you, that's routine.
That's an outrageous example of incompetence.
That's routine. It's insane. Another OIG report, real quick, just so the
Keep
people
going.
know. Another OIG report. In 2018, veterans were being asked to do re-examinations for already service-connected disabilities. The study that the OIG did through their sample study found that re-examination requests were unwarranted at, I think it's 37%. So you're going, all right, now it's bureaucracy, can't complain too much about that. So 1/3 are bad. There's procedures and remedies to fix those. 2/3 are good. It's not. I'd like to see 10%, but I can't gripe too much. Fast forward to March 2023, they do the report again. They found that the 37% has increased to 66%. It doubled. Wait, is that a double? No, it tripled. Is that a triple?
Don't ask me. I'm not the math guy.
From 37% to 66%.
Little less than double.
Little less than double.
Little less than doubled. In 5 years.
Yeah.
And guess who pays for that?
The taxpayer.
The taxpayer. Yeah. Everyone sitting at this table. Everyone listening to this.
That is. I mean, there's incompetence everywhere, right? That goes without saying. But when the incompetence is holding a veteran back from, what do we decide on 50 years for that finger? 50 years of payments that he wasn't receiving. I mean, you can pay it back and he can get that money, but that doesn't help him as much today as it help, and maybe it does help him, but it just changes things when you had it 50 years ago when it was done right the first time, right?
The worst is when you get a veteran who's got combat service and the VA goes, we have no record that you have combat service. I mean, they told me the injuries that I suffered in a helicopter crash, we have no record that you were hurt. We see that you came in here and you have crunching in your knees and you have pain.
Because I was in a desert.
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry, we don't have any evidence that you got hurt. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess riddle me this, Batman. Well, I don't know what this scar here is for.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's it.
You want to jump into the roundabout?
Do I? That's you.
Let's do the roundabout.
You're the roundabout guy.
It's a Sarasota
So
stuff.
Tominator Law wants
We
to know.
turn it back to Sarasota in general. So yeah, go for it.
Tominator Law wants to know what your thoughts are on roundabouts in Sarasota. Do you love them or do you hate them?
Okay, so first I got to preface that I've probably watched most of your episodes specific to this question because it's fun. It's the fun one that people answer. I'm like right in the middle. Like I really enjoy them because, like for example, there's one on Clark and Proctor where if I'm coaching and I got to get to the Twin Lakes fields instead of Tatum, they used to have a light there. That's a nightmare. Guess what? There's no more traffic jams.
Did you go to the coaches clinic last night?
I did.
I was there too.
No. I went to the one. Wait, for who? FC?
Little League. No, I was Twin Lakes for soccer. I got you.
Yeah.
I was talking baseball. I'm
my
a
bad.
coach too, man. Hey, we got that in
Yeah,
common.
right, man.
Yeah, I'm official. I got a freaking notepad. I'm real proud.
They give you a whistle?
I digress. Dude.
Or
No
they
whistles.
just
I got a
shell?
notepad
No
too.
whistles, but I went to a 2.5-hour course on how to be a good coach and all that stuff. So I'm pretty pumped about it. But
I like that they stop traffic jams. It annoys the ever-living hell out of me that people do not know how to operate them. And I tell you, it feels so good when you lay down on that horn because you know that it's totally legitimate. And you can just lay on it and be like, "You're the dumb one, not me."
I had somebody. I was thinking of the podcast the other day because I was going down Main Street and I had somebody stop in the middle of the roundabout to let me in. And I was
worst.
Like, thanks. I'm like, hey, thanks. The people behind you hate you, but I'm going. I'm going to take advantage.
Sometimes it's that they don't know how to operate it, but what bothers me is sometimes I think they just don't want to be considerate. And that bugs me a little bit more.
Like
You know
the
what I mean?
ones that you have maybe 10 feet and they're squeaking in.
They know they're supposed to yield to the traffic in the roundabout. They just don't want to.
Do you feel like you've become more well-versed at roundabouts since
for
the
sure.
podcast?
For sure.
Because I think about it as I
I think
approach.
we're the experts.
Yeah.
I think the next roundabout they want to place in this town, they
Yeah.
got to come see us.
They
first.
should come ask us a few questions.
A nice Sarasota SpeaX logo right in the middle to block the view. Remember we talked about that last
Well,
time?
So apparently, I don't know if you saw this episode, they purposely blocked the view. There's always like an object in the middle, whether it's art or a tree or
You
whatever.
didn't see that episode hasn't come out yet.
Well, hell, trick question.
Yeah, they put that there on purpose.
They put there on purpose so you're not distracted by the
traffic
opposite
on
side
the
of the.
other side.
Yeah.
All right. That's probably a good idea.
something new
Also,
today.
this is we get to this topic. We're talking Sarasota. Everyone's more involved. This guy had the floor, and I think it was because I don't know anything about what it's like to be a veteran and coming out of there, and these guys don't, and we don't know what it's like to go through that. So I appreciate the perspective, but I think it's important. We are talking about Sarasota, but let's talk to Sarasota. Like, you guys got involvement, of course. You guys got people that are donating, but it's not. You don't have everything you need. You don't have everybody you need. So, what would you say to those that want to get involved, or, the easiest ways to get involved? Obviously, we can go donate and things like that, but what are some of the easiest steps to take to just, get involved with SRQ Vets?
Yeah, good question. So the first Monday of every month, unless a holiday falls on it, we meet at 8 p.m. at the DAV Post 97 down off Bee Ridge. You'll notice it because there's a big military truck out front, right next to a church.
Yeah, another one. Right down the street from my house, actually, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we meet there, 8 p.m., first Monday of every month, unless there's a holiday. We hang out there, and we just do a headshed meeting, and we tell everybody what's going on, what happened last month. We run financials. We keep it full transparency, and then we just let them know what's coming up.
That's the first Monday of every month, you said?
Every month,
okay.
Yep.
So there's one coming up.
Holiday.
There's one
Correct.
coming up.
Yep.
How much involvement do you get from non-veterans? Because I know there's a lot of folks who are not veterans but have a lot of military family and have kind of grown up around it and would probably feel comfortable in that kind of setting, and we want to help out.
So for another good question. So for most of the projects, there's a lot of veterans there more so. When we do the hike and stuff, we'll have a lot of people who will show up who are non-military. I don't know, and you're making me think about this now. I don't know if it's more of a fear of like, oh, I don't belong in that group, and people kind of like are reserved. I try to tell everybody, no, just come and join. So with the donation events that we do, not a lot. With the community events we do, we have a lot.
Like the picnic.
Correct. Like
Yeah,
the
those
Memorial
picnics
Day
are
hike.
pretty nice.
Yeah, and the idea was that was always a dream of mine. I mean, that's J.D. Hamill Memorial, and I was always like, this is a gorgeous memorial.
Absolutely.
Like, we need to do a Memorial Day hike for the fallen and have a picnic. Hot dogs, hamburgers, stuff for the kids to play.
Nothing
good
screams
music and
Memorial
beer.
Day like hot dogs and hamburgers
Right?
and a grill.
And
you know?
look at where you're at. Like, the location
Yeah.
is prime. So it's like it had to be.
Well, let's do this. Let's make sure, because this episode will not be out before the first Monday of February, but we can have a clip out. So on the Instagram and whatever else, let's definitely film something as we wrap up, just promoting that Monday. I would love to be there if I can. When do you say it is? 8 p.m.?
8 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll film it when you do your rapid fire.
For sure. That's awesome. And do you guys do, what happens at that event? You said a head shed, so that's just like military talk, or is that something, is that an expression I've just never
Brainstorm.
heard before?
Yeah, so the board has
brainstorm, okay.
The board has a head shed meeting before where we just kind of go over everything, and we present. Then afterwards, we present to the general meeting what we did last month, what our financials are, and what's coming up. We keep it short and simple because, I mean, Elon Musk said it best when he talks about meetings. I cannot stand long, unpurposeful meetings.
No doubt.
I got shit to do.
Yeah.
So
that's a good place for somebody to get plugged in or learn more and then learn
social
about
media
what to
too.
do next. Okay.
Yep, they can send us an email. We can put them on our MailChimp list, and then we can punch out newsletters and things like that.
Awesome.
Email blasts.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on.
We're missing one more thing.
That's you. That's you.
Is that me?
That's
I didn't
you
think that
now.
was me.
It's
All
you
right,
now.
It is. We always like to ask our guests, especially if they've enjoyed the format and what we do here, like, who are other people who you think need their story told and who would enjoy this kind of platform?
Because why, Felipe?
Because if you don't know them, you don't know them.
That's right. That's right.
And I know there are a lot of interesting veterans, former military, folks like that who live in this community who, they don't go around talking about what they've done for us. But I'm sure a lot of us would want to hear what they've done for us.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Oof. I forgot to think about the answer to that question, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to think about it right now. Are you looking specific for?
Doesn't have to be a veteran.
Okay,
Doesn't have. It
perfect.
could be.
No,
It could be a friend. It could be a colleague. It could be somebody that
That's interesting.
It could
in
be a young
Sarasota.
kid that is up and coming. Whatever would be a good fit for the podcast to share their story, because their story needs to be put out there in our community. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, the first one that pops up to in my mind is what Kyle over at FC Sarasota is doing to the club. So he's only been there for a couple years, and he's completely switched the culture.
Okay.
And watching the youth teams grow has been pretty impactful. But it's, I mean, you know, as a coach, you got to coach them on the field, and then you get these kids that are just like, you don't know what kind of kid you're getting on any day, but you have to coach them also as a human.
For sure. Well, we were talking about it last night. It's like, you guys remember some of your Little League coaches, right? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, do you remember the record you guys had that season? Like, nope. You know, so it's not all about winning. It's about the impact and all of that stuff. And we're like, you know, the best way to coach these, I'm coaching, you know, 7 and under baseball. The best way to coach them in baseball is distract them from the fact that they're playing baseball or they're practicing baseball. So everything's a game, everything's fun, you know, all that good stuff. So
I come from a different school of thought. You play to win the game.
that's at a certain age, you know.
Yeah, Kyle, the athletic director at FC,
Okay.
what he's done and how he's shaped the team, I think has been unbelievably impactful.
Okay, very cool.
Very cool.
That's a good one. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for sharing the
A+
story.
podcast, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
I mean,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I enjoyed it. It's just sitting from this seat. So